Hey, how's it going, friends? Thank you for tuning in to VR Revelations. Make sure to give this video a like and make sure you subscribe so you can get notifications of my videos. Anyways, it is February the 15th, the year of our Lord 2023, and I just wanted to make this video concerning some comments that Sergey, Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov made at an event in Moscow. He talked about how the West is pretty much trying to, exclude Russia from the international scene, and we know this is true, of course, since the U.S. Opposes Russia in the current war in Ukraine. Of course, they accuse Russia of launching this aggressive war without justification, without reason. Which is not true. I mean, anybody that's honest about the situation, or at least international politics, will understand that nations are always, testing each other and pushing each other's limits because, of course, every nation wants to be the top nation in the world, right? The ruling power. And, you can't blame them. Most people are proud of their nation, of their history, and so they don't want to be under the authority of another nation. But particularly between the U.S. and Russia, we know that they sort of been bitter enemies since World War II, as is evident by history, such as the Cold War, right? When Russia and the U.S. were literally having a nuclear arms race, while at the same time fighting each other through proxy nations, such as in the Korean Wars, Vietnam, and pretty much all these other places, even up until now Syria, and now more specifically Ukraine. So up until now, you always had Russia and the U.S. sort of supplying weapons to the governments they supported, to the detriment of the population in those nations. But now the big difference is that the U.S. sort of took this Cold War conflict right to Russia's borders, and instead of Russia fighting through a proxy, right, through some sort of militia or rebels or a legitimate government that was pro-Russian, now it's they that are directly involved. And so Russia is very aware of this, and, they're very aware of the damage that the United States can cause to Russia without itself actually being directly involved. And, you have to give it up to the U.S. because, this is one thing that they've done pretty well. They've been able to sort of carry on a war on one of their major rivals, I would say their biggest rival, Russia, without actually having any of their troops getting killed, except, of course, those mercenaries that do voluntarily go and support Ukraine. And really, from that standpoint, the U.S. would want to keep this going as long as it can, right? As long as they aren't actually having to send Americans to fight in the war, they'll happily continue to support Ukraine as more Russians continue to die. And so Russia, for that same reason, in my opinion, doesn't want to prolong the war. And Russian officials have actually accused the U.S. of looking to do just that, to prolong the conflict, right? To try to increase more damage and destabilization to Russia. Now, we know that Russia still has major partners such as India and China. That's all I have to name because those are major economies. They haven't actually put sanctions on Russia or anything. And Russia's economy is holding out pretty strong. But before we jump into this article here from RT News, again, this is a pro-Russian news source. But again, I use a lot of pro-Western news sources also. And we're going to take a look at a video here from one of those sources, the New York Post, just so that you can listen to what General Mike Milley from the United States said here in Brussels. So He was at the Belgium capital, and it's pretty insane. It's kind of like an alternate reality. What he says, he literally says, as you're going to hear, that Russia has lost. Okay, guys. Now I'm showing you the live UA map. You can literally see in every Western news source that's covering the conflict right now just reported that Russia launched a major offensive, guys. Look at this. This is a pro-Ukrainian map, the live UA map that I always use. Russia literally just launched a massive offensive. You can see that this is all artillery that is currently being fired. They're moving on Zivoresk here. It is all but inevitable now, and a foregone conclusion that Russia is going to take control of Bakhmut. As you can see here, it's pretty much already swallowed up by Russian forces. And this is going to be a big symbolic and major victory for Russia, because Zelensky has been making a big deal out of Bakhmut. And so this is definitely about to send a message. But lo and behold, according to General Mike Milley, Russia has lost. So let's take a listen here.
Vary your times, don't set patterns, take different routes. NATO in this coalition has never been stronger, and Russia is now a global pariah. And the world remains inspired by Ukrainian bravery and resilience. In short, Russia has lost. They've lost strategically, operationally, and tactically, and they are paying an enormous price on the battlefield.
There you have it, guys. I wasn't lying. He literally just said Russia lost, as reports are coming in that Ukraine is pulling their forces out of Bakhmut because the Russians are about to take over, and it's going to be a major blow to the Ukrainian war effort here. And there's also the possibility that Russia is still going to launch another part of this offensive through Belarus aimed at the capital here, guys. So, yeah, I mean, why would General Mike Milley lie to us, right? Why would the U.S. say that Russia lost? I mean, it's not like, they've spewed out false propaganda before, like in Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam or pretty much all the other major conflicts that they have intervened in, right? But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at what Sergey Lavrov said here, guys. Again, these Russian politicians, they're very observative, very keen and aware of the situation. Again, I'm not pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian, but if there's two nations in conflict, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear if you live in the U.S. or Russia, or do you actually want me to give you my honest opinion? And my honest opinion, which is confirmed by what is actually happening on the battlefield, ideology aside, is that Russia is advancing. They're about to take Bakhmut, okay? And they're going to move on. Let me see here. So they're about to take Bakhmut, and then they're going to move on to Kramatorsk and Slavyansk next, guys. Things are not looking good for Ukraine. Now, if Ukraine were to launch a major counteroffensive, right? Let's say the U.S. went boots on the ground in there, and we sort of got into a major war scenario, and they started pushing Russian forces all the way back, and that's what the reports were that were coming in. I would report on that. I wouldn't start spewing a whole bunch of false Russian propaganda. But again, people stick to their ideologies, to their nations, verbatim, blindly, and I don't like being lied to. Even if my nation were to be losing the war, I want to know the reality of the situation, right? And the Russians are very clear in their analysis of what is actually happening, as opposed to the West, as we just heard there, claiming that Russia just lost, as they're literally about to take Bakhmut. So anyways, the article says, Russia makes claim over West's hybrid war. Moscow's rivals are seeking to turn it into a pariah. That means like excluded, right, from having commerce with other nations and all these things. Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov claimed the West is attempting to use the Ukraine conflict to portray Russia as a rogue state in the eyes of the world. Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov said on Wednesday. He stressed that the strategy has not been successful. Now remember, guys, the U.S. and all the Western and European nations, they always, come on TV blaming Putin literally for everything, for being a monster, like a Genghis Khan Hitlerian type of figure that's trying to conquer the world, when in reality what happened here is that the U.S. again was meddling right on Russia's borders in Ukraine, installed a pro-Western government, and was literally trying to make Ukraine part of NATO so that it could pretty much have the right to go into Ukraine and install nuclear missiles. That would literally be like 2 minutes from Moscow, guys. Now, if we flipped it and Mexico, in all its sovereign right, tried to make the same moves with Russia, believe me, the United States wouldn't let one Russian soldier into Mexican soil before they were all over Mexico, right? You think Mexico and Canada are sovereign? Yeah, just try and allow them to make friends with Russia and allow their missiles to come into the nation, guys. Go look up and Google the Monroe Doctrine. That's literally what the U.S. literally declares this whole region of the world untouchable. But at the same time, it respects sovereignty. So again, this is just a continuation of the Cold War. And Russia literally just reacted like the U.S. would react. And actually, they've been a lot more measured in their reaction. The U.S. would go bananas if Russia ever tried to install nuclear missiles in Mexico. And if you think that's crazy, that's literally what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Cuba became friends with Russia. They said, hey, our doors are open. You want to install your nuclear missiles here? Go ahead. And the U.S. went ballistic. We literally almost had nuclear war, but then the Russians pulled out of Cuba because the U.S. was acting like a crybaby. So this is what's happening now. That's why I say what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? What's good for you is good for me. So let's not be shameless hypocrites here now. Anyways, Sergey went on to say here, the U.S. and its satellite states are waging an all-encompassing hybrid war that they have long been preparing for and are using Ukrainian radical nationalists as a battering ram against us. Lavrov outlined in a speech to the lower house of the Russian parliament, the State Duma. They are not even trying to hide the goal of this war. It is not only to defeat our country on the battlefield and destroy our economy, but also to surround us with a sanitary cordon and turn us into a type of rogue state. The statement came the same day that the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen unveiled proposals for a new sanctions package against Russia, including additional export bans and measures to prevent the bypassing of restrictions. Lavrov said that the West's efforts to isolate Russia have failed because Moscow continues to develop relations with partners in other areas of the globe. He added that the nations that have refused to back the unprecedented sanctions make up the majority of the world's population. The country of the Asia Pacific, the Middle East, Africa, and South America don't want to live in accordance with the West-centric order, the Russian minister stated, which is true, guys. Not everybody wants to live under the Americans' way of looking at things. That sounds super arrogant just to even say it. But again, there's a lot of arrogance involved in all of this. The country of the Asia Pacific, the Middle East, Africa, and South America don't want to live in accordance with a West-centric order, the Russian minister stated. Okay, I just read that. Sorry about that. So it makes perfect sense why 3/4 of the world's countries have not joined the anti-Russian sanctions and have a reasonable view regarding the situation in Ukraine. China and India are among the major economies that have refused to impose restrictions on Moscow. Denis Alipov, Russia's ambassador to New Delhi, said on Tuesday that sanctions had an opposite effect and facilitated more trade and closer cooperation between Russia and India. So yeah, there you have it, guys. You can go and read more about this yourself. But yeah, it's very interesting. What is going on here, uh, and so I think that the U.S. is going to come out a loser out of this conflict, but really. They're not really that big of losers. The real losers, unfortunately, will be the innocents that are caught in the middle of all this nonsense, right? Caused by Zelensky and his administration and the West. Of course, I'm talking about the citizens of Ukraine and even the soldiers themselves. Again, they were given orders to fight for their country, or else they would be labeled traitors. So they're fighting bravely. And yeah, there is Nazis, people that have Nazi ideology there. I mean, every head is its own world if you think about it. Everybody has different perspectives of reality and of life, but when your nation goes to war, you're obligated to fight for them. And again, Zelensky, I mean, this guy was an actor. He's a clown. He's he really doesn't care that all these people are dying just because he wants to sort of play this like champion for the United States, which is absolutely ridiculous and horrible and evil. And so I think once it becomes evident that Russia is going to win here as they get ready to take Bakhmut, eventually I think Zelensky is going to be ousted from power, guys. He's not going to be there. He's not going to negotiate with the Russians, and he's not going to continue to be the president. After all this blood has been spilled, and after he doesn't give any results, after there is no victory over the Russians, right? Okay, the U.S. and NATO, they're not going to go all in. There's not going to be a nuclear war over Ukraine. And the U.S. is going to, show their cards when it comes down to it. And people are going to end up hating Zelensky for all of it. So, anyways, just remember, guys, the truth is stranger than fiction. And again, I think God is in control of all nations, and he is using all nations to bring about the fulfillment of the biblical prophecies. That's why I do not align with any nation or their ideologies. I try to align with the Word of God, and I try and analyze everything that is happening in the planet from God's lenses, which is his Word. Now, I've gotten into detail about these things in other videos, but I'm going to cut this video short now, guys. Again, if you could give it a like and if you could subscribe, I would appreciate it very much. I will have more videos tomorrow, guys, concerning things on the battlefield in Bakhmut. I am keeping a close eye on the situation right there, guys, so don't worry about it. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.